Hi, and thank you for joining me here again. I'd like to start by wishing you a happy MLK Day and a happy Civil Rights Day. And today I'd like to talk to you about the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and what was said about him at the time. Dr. King is often quoted on the left and on the right uh, and hailed as a national hero at least once a year for his I Have a Dream speech. I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He was a deeply profound thinker, speaker, activist, but by quoting him, in my opinion, it's often just a whitewashing of history. The civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, just as the Black Lives Matter movement of today, was wildly unpopular, with more than half the country opposing it. To quote Robert Kennedy on the subject, Negroes are now just antagonistic and mad, and they're going to be mad at everything. You can't talk to them. My friends all say even the Negro maids and servants are getting antagonistic. Dr. King was seen as a threat to the status quo. J. Edgar Hoover threatened him if he were to accept the Nobel Peace Prize. Go ahead and look up the King suicide letter for some context there. Actually, I'll have a link down in the description below. And to quote from the official 1963 FBI memo on Dr. King, personally, I believe in the light of King's powerful demagogic speech yesterday, he stands head and shoulders above all other Negro leaders put together when it comes to influencing great masses of Negroes. We must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro to the future of this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security. That memo was drafted by the then head of the FBI's Domestic Intelligence Division, William Sullivan. And he was killed a few years later, and there is evidence to support that his assassination was part of the FBI's Operation COINTELPRO. Next, I'd like to read you a letter that was sent to Dr. King after the Birmingham campaign. We clergymen are among those who, in January, issued an, quote, appeal for law and order and common sense, unquote, in dealing with racial problems in Alabama. We expressed understanding that honest convictions in racial matters could properly be pursued in the courts, but urged that decisions of those courts should in the meantime be peacefully obeyed. Since that time there has been some evidence of increased forbearance and a willingness to face facts. Responsible citizens have undertaken to work on various problems which cause racial friction and unrest. In Birmingham, recent public events have given indication that we all have opportunity for a new constructive and realistic approach to racial problems. However, we are now confronted by a series of demonstrations by some of our Negro citizens, directed and led in part by outsiders. We recognize the natural impatience of people who feel that their hopes are slow in being realized, but we are convinced that these demonstrations are unwise and untimely. We agree rather with certain local Negro leadership, which has called for honest and open negotiation of racial issues in our area. We believe this kind of facing of issues can best be accomplished by citizens of our own metropolitan area, white and Negro, meeting with their knowledge and experience of the local situation. All of us need to face that responsibility and find proper channels for its accomplishment. Just as we formally pointed out that, quote, hatred and violence have no sanction in our religious and political traditions, unquote, we also point out that such actions as incite to hatred and violence, however technically peaceful those actions may be, have not contributed to the resolution of our local problems. We do not believe that these days of new hope are days when extreme measures are justified in Birmingham. We commend the community as a whole, and the local news media and law enforcement officials in particular, on the calm manner in which these demonstrations have been handled. We urge the public to continue to show restraint should the demonstrations continue, and the law enforcement officials to remain calm and continue to protect our city from violence. We further strongly urge our Negro community to withdraw support from these demonstrations and to unite locally in working peacefully for better Birmingham. When rights are consistently denied, a cause should be pressed in the courts and in negotiations among local leaders, and not in the streets. We appeal to both our white and Negro citizenry to observe the principles of law and order and common sense. Signed, C.C.J. Carpenter, D.D., LLD, Bishop of Alabama. Joseph A. Durrick, D.D., Auxiliary Bishop, Diocese of Mobile, Birmingham. Rabbi Milton L. Grafman, Temple Emmanuel, Birmingham, Alabama. Bishop Hardin, Paul Hardin, Bishop of the Alabama West Florida Conference of the Methodist Church. Bishop Nolan B. Harmon, Bishop of the North Alabama Conference of the Methodist Church. George B. Murray, D.D., LLD, Bishop Coadjutor, Episcopal Diocese of Alabama. Edward V. Ramage, Moderator, Synod of the Alabama Presbyterian Church in the United States. Earl Stallings, Pastors, First Baptist Church, Birmingham, Alabama. This is the calm manner in which these demonstrations have been handled. Police sicking dogs on peaceful protesters. The Birmingham Fire Department unleashing powerful fire hoses on people. Hoses that were designed specifically to output large volumes of water at a high velocity, being sprayed in the faces of innocent people huddled on the ground, trying to protect themselves. This is the calm manner in which these demonstrations have been handled. And they may have stopped using the same tactics. They may have stopped spraying us with fire hoses and sicking dogs on us. But they just replaced those tactics with rubber bullets, capsaicin pellets, beanbag launchers. And while initially they were using them correctly, they, in recent years, have stopped that practice. Almost wholesale have stopped that practice and have instead opted to shoot people directly in the face with these objects. Or as what happened in a protest in downtown Phoenix, when a man realized that he was in a bad position, in the wrong place at the wrong time, as he fell down to his knees and put his hands up in the air, the police lowered their guns and shot him repeatedly in the testicles. They made a challenge coin about that. It was a big joke for the Phoenix Police Department that they shot an innocent man demonstrating peacefully, observing his First Amendment rights. They shot that man in the testicles repeatedly. The struggle for civil rights is not over. It's not something that is ever going to be over. Freedom is a constant struggle, as Angela Davis said. Black lives do matter. Anyway, that's all that I had for you for right now. Please go out and do good. And may peace and blessings be on you and on those you love. Good night.